going on, YouTube? I put this in my community post recently. For some reason, in my feed, MSN, or MSM, excuse me, mainstream media, documentaries, quote unquote, about Americans struggling, the middle class disappearing, have popped up. And they've been all the way from people's pensions getting cut by a third or by 2/3 during, companies filing bankruptcy, to six-figure income earners that just can't seem to save any money. And some of these six-figure income earners have two incomes that are quite nice. And I noticed the narrative that is spun from that, that type of documentary I keep seeing. And I honestly hate supporting their channels with my views. I truly do. But it's a piece of the puzzle of what's being put out there, and I think it's important to be aware of. I'm seeing these people who had their pensions cut because the company they worked for 20 or 30 years, whatever it ended up being, that was, doing so well or was too big to fail, we've heard that before, filed bankruptcy and was able to cut their pension agreement with the retirees. And do not get me wrong, that is absolutely horrible. In the respect that happened, I feel for these people. But what gets me is that they went through their whole working career, their whole working life, making good money for these big companies, for these big companies and at these big companies. And they just said, oh, okay, cool, I got a pension. I'm not going to worry about saving money or getting into physical assets or investing. I'm just going to let it do its thing and hope for the best. Same thing with people that put all their money in the bank. You're just going to hope for the best? Like, is that the plan? Moving on to the middle class struggling with the six-figure incomes. I see a theme with that, and it, every light in the house is always on, multiple TVs in different rooms. Sometimes I'll see takeout on the kitchen counter, and these people are sitting there talking about how they can't save, they can't get ahead because cost of living's wiping them out. And yes, absolutely, inflation is the biggest tax we pay. It sucks. It's out of control. That is the government's fault. And one of these people had two car payments that totaled like $800 or $900, and then the insurance was $400 or $500. And I'm thinking, why don't they ever talk about spending less? If you really want to build that wealth, if you really want to get ahead, spending less. I'm not saying be uncomfortable, live uncomfortably, go without. I mean, listen, I got two vehicles. They're both paid for. One's a beater, one's fairly decent. And I don't go without. I get cold, I turn on the heat. All right, one of them doesn't have AC, which kind of sucks in the summer, but whatever. I get cold, I turn on the heat. I turn the key, it starts. I drive to work, I get there. I don't need to pay $1,200, $1,400, $1,600 a month to do that. Because if I do that, I don't have this. There's nothing left over for that on top of, the monthly payment to keep a roof over your head and the utilities paid and the cell phone turned on. This one person said they were paying like $300 a month for a cell phone. Dude, I paid $45 a month for unlimited everything. Now, I don't know how many lines they had, but dude, shop around. Shop around for your insurance, man. Like, cut costs. And then they always go on to blaming the employer. Oh, I'm making $100K and I my wages haven't kept up. You're still making a great wage. What people never want to talk about in these documentaries is the costs on the employers have gone up too. And if they want to get all these pay increases, they're going to price themselves out of a job. And they're going to price the consumer out of being able to use the good or service that they provide, because they're going to have to charge them more. Just like, when a tax goes up for a company, it gets passed on to us, the consumer, buying that good and that service. Same thing when, the wage increases happen. If you're making that kind of money and you're broke, I'm going to say it, that's your fault. That is your fault. It is less about what you make and more about what you do with it. Yes, you have to make a certain amount to have that ability. Absolutely. But if you're making six figures and you're broke, you're making bad decisions. Don't blame the employer. That's what I would love to tell these people in these documentaries. I see that whole blame game going, and then they don't really come out and say it, but they're always blaming the government, and that's absolutely correct. But it's almost as if they're saying without saying, we need the government to do something to save us. Dude, you don't want the government involved, okay? That's why you're here in this situation. That's why we're all paying more for food and cost of living and utilities and fuel. Oh, that's another narrative they push. Oh, fuel's down from this time last year. It's still ridiculous, and we all know why. Just these narratives are just, ugh. This video won't be out in the algorithm. They don't talk about spending less and saving more. A couple things I do. I know, it sounds cheap, but why not? When I go to the grocery store and I don't bring my own bag, when I forget, I will usually choose paper, unless I have plenty of them. And the reason why, next to my trash can in the fridge, or in the kitchen, by the fridge, that takes one of those plastic bag liners. I buy them like the 100 box or whatever it is. I will put a paper bag, a paper grocery bag next to it, and I'll throw anything in there that's not nasty. Food wrappers, what have you, papers, whatever I'm tossing. I'll walk out, I'll put it in the trash dumpster, and I'll put it back. It's still a clean bag, and I'm not using those plastic bags. And sure, it doesn't save a lot, but over time it adds up. I probably haven't bought plastic bags for my kitchen trash in 8, 12, 14 months. It's just one other way to cut costs. Another thing I do, I like lunch meat sometimes on some of that keto bread. I'll go to Walmart and I'll get their lunch meat. This is a great Tupperware container. I don't have to buy Tupperware if I get these, right? Yeah, no, it sounds cheap. It all adds up. And it's a dual purpose tool for me. It's Tupperware I can use around the house, and it's something I can pack lunch, which saves me money because I'm cooking at home, and take it to work. I think like that. These documentaries are never talking about that. The ones that push that narrative. They're never talking about getting into physical assets. Gold, silver. All they're doing is pointing the finger at employers and basically spinning the narrative that, hey, you don't have a choice. Cost of living's high, inflation's high, there's nothing you can do, why even save? That's not what they say, but that's what they imply. And that really bothers me. And it bothers me that people choose to fall into that mindset. How long are folks going to go through their lives before they get sick and tired of being sick and tired and broke? For me, I was 28. I didn't know if I could pay rent the next month. I got tired of that. And as long as these mainstream media outlets put that mindset out there and people choose to adopt it, they're going to live in that situation. They're going to stay in that mindset, and they're not going to change their behavior on a psychological level. They're not going to think about money differently and spending less currency to save more money and to build assets. So I just had to get that off my chest. It was bothering me. Thank you all for listening. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out to a channel that I did not expect this from. They do a lot of different things. I wouldn't say they have one type of content. You really never know what you're going to get, and I kind of dig that. And I also dig the fact that he incorporates one of his kids into it. I think that's a great father-son activity. He gave me a shout out, and quite a few people have actually found me through his channel, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to give him a shout out back. Link will be in the description. That will be 3 Good Nerds. You never know what you're going to get. They're funny, they're kooky, they're nerdy, I guess you could say. It's there in the name. So I'm going to encourage people to go support them, go check them out. Thank you for the shout out. I appreciate you guys for doing that. And let's make decisions to get ahead every day. Let's do this as a community. Let's reach out. Let's help people. Let's support each other. And let's also do one more thing, and that's keep stacking.